Hello students. In this video I am going to be showing you guys how to use linear perspective to draw convincing looking square and rectangular objects. A lot of people know this as using the vanishing point, so we are going to be using something called the vanishing point today. Some of you may have a ruler sort of like this, a normal like foot-long ruler, and this is okay to use if this is what you have. If you happen to have a triangle, that can help you get your vertical lines in perfect vertical alignment, which is kind of what we want. Some of you may be the lucky owners of something even larger, but any kind of ruler or straight edge will work. This is an example of a straight edge that is not a ruler, doesn't have any measurements on it, but I've even drawn this kind of drawing by folding up a sheet of paper into a nice straight edge. It's a little stronger than a single sheet of paper. So if you don't have a ruler, you can get creative. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is create a light guideline. I would say for this activity, go about halfway down your paper and try to eyeball something that is pretty horizontal, just straight across your paper. Now, if your ruler is too short, you can kind of start in one position and move it over to finish your line. Okay. Now, in the middle, I'm going to do an X, and that point is going to stand for the vanishing point, the point where all objects recede into the distance and disappear. If they're really long, can extend that far. Imagine a highway going across the desert, for example. In this activity, we're going to do our first practice. So we're going to draw, I call it the flat screen TV in the desert. Now, I call this a desert just because I'm imagining a big flat area. Now, there's 3 steps to this. The first one is to draw the closest horizontal. So if I imagined a big flat screen TV, nice and flat, I'm going to do the closest edge to me, and part of it's getting further away. So I'm going to draw a vertical line that goes way up above my eye level. This is going to be an enormous flat screen TV. So you need to do a vertical line. Now I just used a triangle because with a triangle I can line up the bottom corner and get a perfect vertical. Now some of you are going to be fine at using a ruler or a straight edge and just eyeballing what vertical is. Some of us do not have this ability. I'm actually not that great at eyeballing it by myself without the triangle. But try to get it straight up and down. In this kind of drawing, if a line is vertical or straight up and down in real life, it's always straight up and down in this kind of drawing. Okay, so that's step number 1, to do the closest vertical. Step number 2 is to go from the bottom of that and head toward your vanishing point. Okay, so it's kind of like I'm drawing a huge triangle. Now, normally I'd suggest you draw these really, really light because you're probably going to want to erase some parts of them. So now I'm lining my straight edge from the top of that first line I did, step number 1, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my line going to my vanishing point. Now, my friends, this vanishing point is the boss of your whole picture. You never move the vanishing point, and I do an X because it helps me know exactly where the center is. If you do a dot, sometimes people, they head above the dot, below the dot, and it doesn't look that great. All right, so that's step number 2, where you draw your lines heading toward your vanishing point. And step number 3, where I'm going to finish my my shape off by drawing the farthest line, and then I need to do some erasing. So I went ahead and drew the furthest line, and now I need to take my eraser and get rid of the extra. So these little spots here are parts that are outside of my flat screen TV, and also a flat screen TV is not a sheet of glass, my friends. So I'm going to make it overlap the horizon by erasing the horizon within it, which is why you want to draw the horizon line kind of light so you can get rid of it fully. Okay. Though granted, if you shade and draw, you will get rid of any leftover lines, right? Okay. So my friends, if you stand back from your drawing and you look at it, you will probably notice that it sort of has this illusion that it's going back in space and that this end is farther away from you than this end. I am going to show you now how to make this have a 3D side. In this type of drawing where you're just using a single vanishing point, you make that side that's facing you just a normal old rectangle, nothing special about it. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw the front edge of the TV, and I'm going to morph this bad boy into something that is a little fancier than a TV. How about the corner of a building just standing there on the desert? Okay. So I'm going to try to eyeball. I check these different spaces and make sure that my line looks as horizontal as possible. Okay. Now, if you're into this stuff, you will learn, there's lots more to learn about how to make this building look even more realistic, or this flat screen TV. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. That is the beginning of this skill. Now, the second thing I want you to learn how to do today is how to draw big rectangles or cubes even. Now there's two ways to do this. You can draw the beginnings of a cube using your straight edge or your ruler, or you can go ahead and freehand it and then sharpen it up. I tend to be of the freehanding camp because I can kind of tell where I want my box to be and the size I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just sketch out the box. And then if you have access to something that makes your lines really, really straight, like a triangle, you can go ahead and line up the side of the triangle and sharpen those lines up. It looks like mine is actually, weirdly, unusual for me, pretty, the lines are actually pretty horizontal. This one right here I made by trying to use the straight edge and doing it badly, letting it slip as I was drawing. So I'm lining my straight up at the sides, and that helps me get these lines perfectly horizontal and perfectly vertical. Most humans naturally can tell when something is horizontal and vertical, so don't worry about it too much. If you just have a straight edge, you can still just kind of eyeball what looks horizontal and vertical and call it a day, okay? So I'm cleaning mine up a little bit. There you go. So now I have a nice square. Now I'm going to do steps 1, 2, and 3 again, this time with a square shape facing me. So step 1 is basically already done. I drew the side of the object that's closest to me. Now I'm going to try to make a cube that looks 3D by drawing from these 3 points toward my vanishing point. Now, if I don't want to have to erase as much, I can actually stop my lines before they get to the vanishing point. They're just heading in the direction of the vanishing point. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do this time, because I like to keep my paper as clean as possible and to avoid having to do too much extra erasing. So I'm changing the angle of each of these lines so these always head toward the vanishing point. I know you're asking yourself, well, but those lines should be parallel because boxes are parallel. But you'll remember from previous lessons that things that are farther away get smaller, and that counts the size of the front of a rectangle going to the end of the rectangle. The rectangle is going to get smaller. Using the vanishing point can teach you how to, can help you do that in a really effective way. So again, this is the part that's easiest to get wrong. If you do not have a triangle, I won't blame you if they're a little wonky. But this back line, the step number 3, where we're finishing off our cube, needs to be perfectly horizontal. It needs to be parallel to the horizon. So I'm using my triangle to help me get that line right. I like to erase extra bits as soon as possible because otherwise they can get in your way visually and make me confused, at least about what I'm doing and if I'm doing it right. So here we go. I'm going to do this second line starting at that corner and go perfect vertical line up and down. It gets confusing because of these lines going to the vanishing point, so you really have to make sure you're getting that perfectly vertical for this to look good. Now, when you look at that, you should be able to see, that this rectangle looks like it is heading off into the distance. It has a sense of space, and it makes sense with this one. My friends, that is what the vanishing point can do for you, okay? I'm gonna draw one more cube up here in the sky. It's exactly the same as drawing this. As a matter of fact, if I turn this over, it will look like my cube is up in the sky. So I'm basically gonna draw this above eye level where I can see the bottom of the box, the side of the box, and it's all heading to the same vanishing point, okay? So It is exactly the same activity. If you want, you can change the shape of your box a little bit so that it is a slightly different task. But for example, I can make this one a little longer and skinnier than the one that's down. We just turned this into a more surreal picture by having a cube floating in the sky. Okay, so I freehanded it. You can sharpen it up. In this case, I'm not gonna. If I was gonna keep drawing on this picture, I know I'd have lots of kind of loose and flowy lines because that's my preferred style. So I am going to go from the 3 corners again that are closest to the vanishing point, and I'm gonna draw lines that head straight off to that vanishing point, but I'm not gonna draw them all the way there because that's too much erasing for my taste. Got one line. Now I'm gonna move it and go ahead. I'm not just guessing, okay? Remember, this vanishing point is the boss of the whole drawing. Everything's got to go to the boss. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna line it up with the top, and again with the vanishing point. Step number 2 here, going off to the vanishing point. And step number 3 is again finishing those lines off. So I'm gonna go ahead and line my my triangle up to the side. You can actually do this with a ruler. It's just a smaller kind of line up. Actually, I'll do it with a ruler just so you can kind of see. So I'm still lining up the end and kind of just checking with my eyes. It's easy to get it a little bit off and then everything looks kind of wonky. We tend to be really good at telling when things are off kilter, but somehow drawing them so they're really straight is a whole different thing. I'm going to start at this point that I just created because I know that's the end of the box. Now, right now I'm drawing boxes, but you can go ahead with a skeleton of a drawing and turn these into anything, any size. You want them to be a cereal box? Great. You want it to be a dresser? Great. You want to turn these into a table even? No problem, okay? So, steps 1 are to draw the closest shape. This is step 1, and this line in this case. Step 2 are to do the lines heading to the vanishing point. So I'm just labeling them so you can get a sense. These were all step 2 because these lines all head to the vanishing point. And step 3 are to do the final horizontals and verticals. Okay, so this line over here is all step 3. You do not have to label yours, but I want you to remember those 3 steps, okay? Thanks for looking in.